Hello, and my name is Jake McDermott, and this is a student documentary that I have produced for Hothouse Studios as part of my Level 5 H&D course. In this documentary, I will set out a question that has intrigued me for some time, and that is, why has Ireland's once extensive railway network seamlessly vanished? And why do few people surely understand the scale of why it was lost? Growing up, I became increasingly aware of the remnants of the old rail lines, overgrown tracks and abandoned stations and routes that are no longer appear on modern maps. The history of the rail transport in Ireland began only 10 years later than Great Britain. By its peak in 1920, Ireland had over 3,500 route miles, also 5,630 kilometres. Now in the modern day of Ireland, it has almost been cut entirely in half. This cuts out a lot of rural parts of Ireland where transport may not be publicly available to people. And in this documentary today, I actually want to talk about the reasoning behind why Ireland has drastically took measures to cut its rail network and why it may be possibly revising it in the future. But before getting into this topic, I wanted to look at the old history of Ireland, and this includes its rural past with buildings that are still standing that are remnants of the old rail network. The first one I looked at was one in Victoria Bridge, situated in Strabane. Firstly, when exploring Ireland's expansive array of rail networks, I first wanted to look at the bridges, as there's a lot of them. I mean a lot of them in Ireland. A lot of derelict bridges that have ran down over the years as the network that decided to calm down on rail networks and, expand more on public transport. But we'll get into the public transport reason on why that's affected what's happened in a bit. The Victoria Bridge, historically anchored by the Castlederrick and Victoria Tramway, opened in 1883 as part of the Great Northern Rail. It reached this area in 1852 as the village noted early progress in rail infrastructure, including the 1880 stations built near signposts. Ireland's extensive rail network were primarily dismantled during the mid-20th century, with the most aggressive phase of closures spanning from the 1930s to the 1960s. This decline was driven by the rise of motor transport and just public transport becoming more affordable. Between the 1930s and 1940s, early closure began in the Republic of Northern Ireland. The Belfast and County Down Railway in the north saw a majority of its network shut down starting in the early 1940s. In the 1950s, the decline accelerated rapidly following nationalisation. The Ulster Transport Authority, or also known as the UTA, closed roughly about 80% of Northern Ireland's rail system in 1957. Most of the cross-border Great Northern Railway, also known as the GNR, was broken up. In the 1960s, the Republic of Ireland followed suit of the north, with the state transport company CIE shutting down major rural lines, including the West Cork Railway in 1961, due to the unprofitability and political choices favouring roads. By the end of this period, Ireland's network has shrunk from a peak of about 3,500 route miles in the 1920s to less than half of that amount. Closure of Ireland's railway network was driven by state governments prioritising road transport within Northern Ireland. The Stormont administration and the Ulster Transport Authority, the UTA, pushed anti-rail policies in the Republic, and State Transport Act drove to these eventual closures. The Government of Ireland heavily pushed to close the lines, most notably in 1957 when they ordered the closure of the Great Northern Railway lines of the west of the River Bann. Seeing as I am, personally young, I wanted to look at someone who would have a better opinion and a better thought behind the rail network, as they actually lived through the network. And I was able to come across this interview by Joe Darling that I found quite interesting, as he seems to talk about and have a passion for the rail network, and it's generally sad to see it go.
Planned. And I used to see the trains going by Fairview Park. And I loved the sound of it and the nice smell of steam and smoke combined together. That's what gives the lovely smell. The favourite train journey would be down to Cork. because it's when the train is coming out of the tunnel, which is known in Cork. It's a long tunnel, and the sound of the engine coming out. At one time, we had two engines. Well, the two of those, 85 and 171, coming out of that tunnel. It's unbelievable. The sound, the wonderful sound, and the smoke and steam of it.
After listening to this interview and reflecting upon it, I think personally it allows me to look at the evolution of the rail network and how it's evolved and also de-evolved. As you know, the rail network has shrunk. That is a fact in Ireland. But on the other hand, stations and networks also get provided by TransLink, and TransLink provide funding towards these stations, which sees them run. And in the past 4 years, Belfast got an entire revamp called Belfast Grand Central Station. Compared to Belfast's old transport station, it is a very big step. This video was made by TransLink, and you can find everything relating to this video in the link in the description and also on their page.
I have been in Belfast for the last 3 years. I have went around the entire UK, and I would say like it's one of the best stations I have seen in the UK. It's so nice, it's like in all international standard. I think it's very well connected, and I think it will be good for tourists as well as the local people.
It looks very new, modern. It's nice to have something a little bit more modern, yeah. There's loads of new shops and stuff, so it would be nice to have somewhere to like actually chill while you're waiting for your bus or train.
It's modern, fresh,
yes,
integrated, alive, receptive, good, I would have thought.
Good first impressions, definitely.
I've been watching it progress, and it's lovely to come in here for the first time. Bright and airy and well signposted.
It's much more spacious, it's much more sort of bright and modern. For anyone coming into Belfast, it's going to be a good first impression.
Belfast Grand Central Station has a variety of locations. This includes Lisburn, Portadown, Bangor, Larne, Derry and Dublin. These are all locations that are significant parts of the island and are easily accessible by the new transport location in the centre of Belfast. Earlier on this year, TransLink interviewed people about their opinions and reactions to how the transport network works and how the station has been improved and everything. So please enjoy. Belfast Grand Central Station was built to replace the outdated infrastructure and consolidate Belfast's separate train and bus networks into a single working integrated transport hub. Opened in late 2024, the $340 million facility was commissioned by TransLink and the Northern Ireland Executive of Modernised Public Transport. This was to drive economic growth and accommodate a massive expected increase in passenger numbers. At the beginning of my research, I asked the question on why is Ireland's rail networks disappearing and what will we do to revise them? Well, good news. In 2026 there's actually a lot of promise for Ireland's rail network, as the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review Port, which was jointly commissioned by the Department of Transport in Ireland and the Department of Infrastructure in Northern Ireland, sets out a strategic vision for development of rail systems across the island and all over Ireland in the coming decades. The Railway Review Port sets out 32 strategic recommendations to enhance the rail system up to 2050, aligning with the net carbon zero commitments in both jurisdictions. The recommendation seeks to transform the quality of the rail system to benefit passengers and the wider society of the island, involving traditional track capacity, electrification of the transport, increased speeds, higher services that are frequent and new routes. The final rail review has taken account of responses received on a draft report which was issued for a Strategic Environmental Assessment, also known as a SEA. The Northern Ireland Rail Growth Plan is primarily driven by the All-Ireland Strategic Rail Review, also known as a AISRR, and TransLink shaping the future strategy. These blueprints aim to expand the network by over 40%, upgrade infrastructure to decalibrate the network and double passenger journeys by 2050. lines that they would like to add and are more than likely going to by the year of 2050 if everything goes according to plan, as the restoration at the Portadown to Derry line, a massive 75-mile new alignment connecting Dungannon, Omagh, Strabane and Derry. Another line would be Portadown to Armagh, restoring the Armagh connection, making it the final link. Supported by the Department of Infrastructure, also known as the DFI, these visions build upon recent massive upgrades such as the landmark Grand Central Station, like I mentioned, and the expanded enterprise service between Belfast to Dublin. And so, the story of Ireland's railways enters a new chapter. What was once abandoned is now being reborn. What was once divided is now bringing communities together. Across the country, the restoration of the rail network is no longer just a vision that we may have thought, but it's becoming a reality, and a strong reality, especially with all the government bodies and transport bodies working alongside each other to restore what Ireland's rail network once was. The rail network will benefit future generations, as these will not only be a way of simply travelling, but they'll create opportunities, strengthen communities, and protect the environment as Ireland eventually moves on to electric. The tracks laid generations ago are carrying Ireland forward once again, and as the trains disappear into the distance, one thing becomes clear: Ireland's journey is not over for rail, and it will surely revive.